Hey VC, what's up? It's me, yours truly. I am back to do a quick video here, and this is going to be a video response to Quentin, his 200 subs contest. Uh, I believe username, in case you guys are not familiar with this channel, I believe it's Captain Zoot V, I think. Yeah, I believe that's it. Captain ZOOT, and then the letter V. I'm almost sure that's what it is. Well, if I happen to be wrong, this video will be connected to that one, so you'll be able to check it out with no problem. But yeah, just back to do a quick video response to his 200 subs contest. He's been in the VC here for a little while, and as always, man, I want to start off by saying congratulations on the 200 subs. It's been great having you as part of the VC, and just glad I have the opportunity to jump in on your contest here. Really kind of cool, simple question too, which I always like those type of contests sometimes, because I remember when some of these threads and contests used to get pretty freaking complex. But before I get started, playing in the background, any of you high fidelity fans definitely remember this particular album, which is Captain Beefheart. Oh, and his Magic Band, of course. And this is Safe as Milk. And you guys remember this, of course, from High Fidelity. You still have that Beefheart French import Safe as Milk? One of my favorite scenes in that movie. So yeah, that's what's playing in the background. What this also reminds me of with that movie too, it makes me cringe every time I think about it, is obviously the actor that they got in the movie to buy this record, which he offered $40 for it in the record, or in the movie. Obviously he knew nothing about vinyl. They didn't train him well, because when Rob said sold and handed to him, do you ever pay attention to it? He grabs it right by the corner, and the whole time he's talking, the record is just like bending and flexing. He's holding it right here, and it's just like, makes me cringe every time I see that scene. He's just blah 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 blah, and he's holding like right on the freaking end. Anyway, that's my most unpleasant scene in the entire movie. But anyway, that's not one of the 10 records, so let me kind of move on, which gets back to his Quentin's contest, which is just kind of I think it was the random 10 or the, oh gosh, I should have had my computer on. But basically what he was saying was just to kind of go through your collection and pick out just kind of 10 random records, and just kind of share them and talk about them, and whatever. So he didn't necessarily have like a subject or a topic that you had to kind of stay on or anything, which again, kind of a really cool idea. So what I decided to do is I said, well, just to pick out 10 records is going to be way too difficult for me. So what I'll do is I will think back about all the conversations that I had over the past week, and just pick out an album that maybe goes along with some conversation interaction I had with someone last week. So I thought that'd be kind of a fun way to do it. So that's what I did. So let's start off here. I had lunch with my mother the last week, and we sat down and talked about a bunch of stuff, which we typically do when we actually have that time like that. And I just kind of picked out two albums here that represents two of the subject matters we talked about. First of all, and I don't know if you guys know this about me or not, but I'm very religious and very spiritual, and my entire family has come from a long line of that. And so again, a lot of times people maybe don't know that about me, or don't necessarily initially think that about me. They don't know because, well, how would someone that could be, as spiritual as you say you are, and as God-fearing and everything else, be such a, Slayer fan, and all of that stuff. And I don't know, to me it's two different things of what you enjoy from a music perspective and what you let creep into your soul. That's two totally different things to me. So that's just kind of maybe a brief explanation. But anyway, so it made me think about, well, let me pull out one of my favorite gospel albums, because we had a very long, in-depth conversation about just different Bible verses and just all kinds of stuff, which is really good. And this is definitely my favorite gospel album, which is Willie Johnson and the Gospel Keynotes. Love this album to death. Every single song on it is absolutely fantastic. And I actually have this on 8-track because my mother had the 8-track when I was young, and I used to play it all the time. So I loved it even back then. And actually, about 4 years ago, she found it in a box, some old stuff stored away, and she cleaned it up and gave it to me as a birthday gift, which is a really, really cool gift. So it's nice to still have that 8-track, but I did happen to find it on vinyl, which is very, very cool. So that's one. And then another thing in our conversations, we typically get into different type of political, talks and stuff like that, which again is something I don't know if anyone in the VC really knows, but I'm very, very much into politics. I love debating. I love, just talking about different issues and all of that. And I love being able to do it without, very, very intellectually. I don't get into all the attacking stuff and everything else. Unless I'm like talking with a friend, then I'll kind of joke around and, and that type of stuff. But just kind of in general, when you're going out to the world and really getting around other people, from different views and stuff like that, especially those you don't know, just, other average, everyday citizens and so forth. The whole concept behind name calling and all of that stuff in that element is just bugs the crap out of me. I mean, can't be more civilized than that. That's just all kind of issues there. But anyway, I won't dive too far into that. But around some of my friends, especially those that are on different viewpoints than me, just like one-on-one, we'll give each other a hard time all the time, and it's kind of fun. I actually like doing that, and they like doing it to me too. So, but anyway, that made me think about this album, which is Curtis Mayfield, probably I think his best work ever. There's No Place Like America Today. And the reason I thought about this album is because, one thing I find kind of interesting is when you have albums that seem to really kind of define different periods of time, or things that are going on in the world or going on with a certain group of people and stuff like that. So, when I think about stuff like Nirvana's Nevermind, for example, to me that album truly is a representation of where a lot of youth were in the 90s there, in terms of, there was hip hop going on, there was kind of the hair metal thing was kind of, big then as well, but there wasn't really a genre of music in a big way that was representing whatever angst or struggles or whatever else that was kind of going on really with teens at that point in time. It was kind of like the 80s were just getting kind of lost and going in a lot of different directions, which I loved all those directions, by the way. But I think when Nevermind came along, it really did kind of make a clear voice for that group of people. And so, again, albums like that are just kind of very, very cool to me. And I think that Curtis Mayfield's There's No Place Like America Today, it was the exact same thing for the black community in the early to mid 70s. I think this album is kind of a great representation, not even just from the lyrics, but just the feel of the album. I mean, it just really, really, in my mind, captures kind of all the good and the bad from that time period for the black community. So, When Seasons Change, Blue Monday, People, Hard Times, Jesus, I mean, those are some of the titles of a few of the songs, but, I mean, this album is just fantastic. So if you have not heard this before, make sure you definitely check that out. Okay, get a little long-winded on that, so let me kind of go through these a little quicker. Next album, I was talking with some friends at work, and they had asked me a question, because, again, they kind of, get to know me and everything else, and we started talking about something, and they went into the whole, wow, I never would have expected that from you, which I get all the time. And so one of them asked me, like, have you ever been on a date or something where, like, someone just found out something about you that just kind of, like, totally shocked them right off the bat because, that doesn't fit your exterior and blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, yeah, one time, this is the first thing that came to my mind. I said I was on a date, this was maybe 7 months ago, 8 months ago, something like that, and we were sitting there eating, and there was music playing, nobody else really there at all, and then this song came on the overhead, and without even just like thinking about it, I just went into my little snap and just started singing it and sang the whole thing all the way through. And they were like, you are a weird black man. And the song was Donka Shane by Wayne Newton. Man, that was so freaking fun. I even had myself cracking up. It was, but so yeah, again, I just kind of, that conversation came up this week and it made me think about that. So thought I would show that one. And there's basically 3 songs that will make me, no matter what's going on, go into my little, what I call my Vegas snap, and I just have to sing the songs, even if it's just completely under my breath. But Donkey Shane by Wayne Newton, Mac the Knife by Bobby Darwin, or I Won't Dance by Frank Sinatra. Those 3 songs, I cannot hold it in. So that was the topic of that conversation. Got into another conversation with someone about the difference between R&B music back then and now, and my basic point behind that was, R&B doesn't sing about love in the same way that it used to, even in today's music. And of course, there's some exceptions. Don't get me wrong, but overall, I find that the element of the surrendering nature of love is no longer really in especially R&B music as much these days, where you have guys and people screaming at the top of their lungs about how fine your body is and what it does to me and blah blah blah. That's still kind of a position of power in love, and not necessarily a position of surrendering to love. And I think that's a soul that's really missing from modern day R&B music. That's what makes the stuff from the 60s and 70s so different than what it is now. And so based on that conversation, I just picked out one of my favorite 80s R&B albums, or groups I should say, which is the Sos Band. They had some good stuff, my friend, and Tell Me If You Still Care, probably my favorite song by them, but definitely my favorite song off of this album, which is Sos Band on the Rise. So I think they're a good representation of that. This week too, my mom gave me just some little things she picked up, and one was a Grease DVD, the one that has like a little leather jacket wrapped around it. And so it made me think again of Grease 2, because I've spent so many hours of my life arguing with people about how Grease 2 is so much better than the original Grease, movie and soundtrack wise. So that's where Grease 2 comes from. This next one here, this one's kind of based off of a video that I saw, and again, kind of keep this shorter. The video was about vibrations, music and so forth. And somehow they did this experiment where they took like a speaker or something, they put a metal plate on top of it, and then they played different notes or whatever, and they changed the frequency on, all that stuff. And so what they did was they poured sand on top of the metal plate that's sitting on the speaker, so that when the different frequencies and vibrations took place, it moved the sand around. It was amazing how when they changed the frequencies and so forth, the plate was putting the sand into all of these very, very symmetrical and clear patterns on top of the plate. I mean, stuff that looks like someone drew it, with a ruler, like that type of straight line. And every time they would change the frequency, the sand would shift and it'd go into these different patterns, and totally symmetrical, geometrical, if you will, I guess, patterns. And it was just kind of cool, because again, it just kind of reinforced to me, see, that's what music is about, is that certain vibrations and certain frequencies, at least I believe, when they hit our body, makes things happen inside of us, and the ones that make things happen in a way that feels good, those are the bands we end up liking and loving and, whatever else. And so it made me think of that, because I've always thought it's been very curious, if you will, why an album like this, which I love this album to death, which is Washed Out, just kind of always, this is Within and Without, the name of the album. I've always wondered, why have I always found this to be one of the most sensual albums that I've ever heard, even though so much stuff on it is more upbeat. It's not like your slow, it's not like a Sade Love Deluxe, kind of albums like that you expect to be romantic and sensual and that type of thing. But again, it was kind of one of those, that's just it. It's just the vibrations that come through this music gives off that sense. And obviously, I wasn't the only one, because whoever made the cover for this album obviously got the exact same sense from it, because that really does capture the essence of this album. So seeing that video just made me automatically think about this album. In that same conversation, I was talking with my mother when we got into world events and everything else. She was telling me about some of her visits to South Africa. I've been to Africa myself, but never been to South Africa. And she had been there, and she had been to the slums that were there after with apartheid and all that stuff. So we kind of got into that conversation, and so it made me think about Sun City. Artists United Against Apartheid. You guys remember that from the 80s? Where all those, in case of those of you that don't remember, a lot of the top artists back in the day who were basically boycotting playing in South Africa because of apartheid. So like, we're not going to go there. And so that they put together this song called Sun City. And there was a lot of them too. I mean, Grandmaster Melly Mel, Bonnie Raitt, Daryl Hall and John Oates, Lou Reed, David Ruffin, Run DMC, Bruce Springsteen, Ringo Starr, I know Bono, Peter Wolf, Bobby Womack, Pete Townsend, African Bambaataa, Curtis Blow, Jimmy Cliff, George Clinton, Miles Davis, Bob Dylan, the Fat Boys, Peter Gabriel, Herbie Hancock. And that's not even all of them, but those are all the artists that got together and did this song and made that video. And they were like, Sun City till you end the crap. We're not coming over there to play any concerts. Screw it. So, very cool stuff from back in the 80s there. I'm sorry, hold on a second, guys. I must be talking long as I went through the whole... But my videos usually aren't over 15 minutes, so I'll take a little extra time with this, why not? REO Speedwagon, the hits. I went and saw REO Speedwagon, Styx, and Ted Nugent about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and for whatever reason, I cannot stop listening to the song "Don't Let Him Go" by REO Speedwagon. After hearing it in that concert, I have not been able to put it down, and I have no idea why. But so I was telling someone about that this weekend too. So I thought, that was a conversation. Had a talk about digging for records and everything else, and was telling someone about the time when that store was going out of business, the guy died, family was just selling off everything, they didn't want to keep the store going. He had 350,000 records in stock, and they basically opened up a warehouse. Come on in, everything is $1. They did that every weekend for, I think, 8 or 9 weekends, where when it kind of got empty on one weekend, they would bring more records and fill it back up, and I think I got like 187 records out of there for $187, which was a great steal. But every time I think about that dig, and I was talking about it this past week, it made me think about this record, because this is one of the ones that I got out of there that day, which is a sealed copy of Winger, The Heart of the Young. Yeah. So anyway, I talked about that dig story this weekend. And my very last one here was actually based off a message I sent to LJ. So I told him how jealous I was about all those metal cassettes that he was finding at that place, especially those Sepultura ones that he found. And so, kind of mentioning that to him made me think, well, I did talk about Sepultura this weekend, or this past week. And so here's Sepultura Roots. It's a very, very good album by them as well. So, anyway, so there you go, Quentin. Random 10. As always, thank you very much for putting up the contest. Very cool question. I hope you enjoyed my responses. I don't know how long this video is gone, but I get the feeling it's probably going to be like the longest video I've made in quite some time. But anyway, thanks for checking it out, VC. And as always, we will talk to you soon. All right, take care, guys.